Hi everyone, I'm Chris Monaghan from Nomo, and welcome to this session of the Nomo Broker Academy. Today we're diving into why GCC buyers are looking at UK residential property and what this means for mortgage brokers. The GCC to UK property relationship has a long history. The market is now worth close to £1 billion annually, and that's driven by a few things: wealth growth, expat connections, a chance to diversify investments, and the strong cultural bonds between GCC countries and the UK. Just to remind everyone, the GCC, which is the Gulf Cooperation Council countries, are UAE, that includes Dubai, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Bahrain. We think there's three main key themes to take away from our 2024 report. The first one is that the UK is often the preferred destination for GCC residents looking to buy property outside of the region. Some of that's the perceived stability and cultural ties with the UK, and also some of the UAE-driven demand is based on the expat community. The second key theme is around GCC buyers and the fact that they're still, like most people, price conscious. So whether that's focusing in on London or whether they're looking at the high yield cities from a buy-to-let point of view, they're still sensitive to both price and value. The third key theme we think is that inexperienced buyers can be really surprised by our legal system, whether that's timelines, leasehold versus freehold, or stamp duty as an example. An early education will really help brokers and customers on the home buying journey. So let's just have a little deeper dive in some of the stats. This first graph represents the demand by country as a proportion of the total demand from GCC residents looking at UK property, and this is care of Rightmove, who we partner with from a data point of view. You can see over the last 5 years, actually search volumes have been pretty stable. First thing to call out is that the UAE drives well over half of all inquiries into the UK from the region. That's probably not that surprising given the expat links and also cultural ties with the UAE. I think the second thing to point out is just have a look at that top line, which is Saudi Arabia. And that's grown from 10% in 2019 to 17% in 2024. That's probably the biggest mover in the area. And then third by search demand is Qatar, followed by Kuwait behind that. So it shows you as a proportion, where these searches are coming from, what the country of origin from a resident's point of view. This second graph is probably a little bit more surprising. So this is like a heat map of where people are searching when they're searching on Rightmove from the GCC area. I think there's probably some expectations that this is primarily a London-driven market, and that's just not the case. So I mentioned in some of the key takeaways I think from this report is that value is what really drives demand, and pricing point of view, but it's also a yield demand piece as well. And so if you look at some of the high ranking cities here, so Glasgow, Liverpool, Manchester, Edinburgh, Leeds and Birmingham as an example, they tend to have higher yields for buy-to-let properties, certainly than the southeast does as an example. And I think what this demonstrates to brokers up and down the UK is that there's going to be need for a need and demand for brokers to look after GCC residents all across the UK. And so it's important to get yourself a channel and a lender that you can work with to ensure that that happens smoothly. A few takeaways for brokers from this session today. I think first, local mortgage brokers are essential. We've already seen that the demand for property is right across the UK. And if we look at the brokers who have onboarded with Nomo Bank and use us regularly, they're really spread throughout the UK too. The second is to have a Sharia compliant offering for these customers. Whilst it's not always the primary driver for taking property finance with Nomo, it's a real backbone of what we do. And certainly people in the region always look first for Sharia compliant property finance. I think the last point I'd leave you with is buyer education. So making sure that they're really aware of what documentation is required throughout the UK property buying process, what the timeframes might be, and also have a look at the legal process and what the demands are there. Probably last thing to add is also from that legal point of view, make sure that you've got someone who's used to dealing with GCC customers and understands the complexities and the intricacies of dealing with international buyers. Thanks for watching today. You'll find the full report on the website at the link below. And obviously, if you want to speak to one of the team, and particularly the BDM team, just visit the Contact Us page. It's got all of the details of our BDMs, including their telephone numbers and email addresses. And they're always ready, willing, and able to help any mortgage broker across the UK and also in the UAE too.